too. Welcome, friends and family, to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Eric, and I am an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street at 8:30 p.m. in Doylestown, PA. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name?
Alcoholic, my name is Skyler. I'm from Bel-Air, Maryland.
Skyler, welcome.
Welcome. My name's Jim. I'm an alcoholic from Pennington, New Jersey.
Welcome, Jim. Anyone else?
Alcoholic Nancy. I'm from Bel-Air, Maryland.
Nancy, welcome. Okay. If you have any questions or would like to make this your home group, please see me or Ron after the meeting. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. Thank you all for your service. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Okay. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them, please put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD donations right over there. If you would like a CD of any speaker past or present, again, please see me or Ron after the meeting. They are available free of charge. We always need help, so if you would like to get involved with this meeting and group, please see me or Ron after the meeting. And I've asked good friend Erica to come up and read the preamble.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. I've asked Olivia to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Hi, my name's Olivia and I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to prove our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening of the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
We have a 7th tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. This time I would like to pass the basket. We have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses, such as coffee, cream, donuts, rent, big books, and CDs. Again, there's absolutely no smoking on church property, so if you can, just take it to the nearest sidewalk. Please silence all cell phones and limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. And now I'd like to introduce a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group, all the way from Maryland. We have Skyler V. Please help me welcome her.
How you doing? Alcoholic, my name is Skyler. Real quick, I have a sobriety date. It's December 22nd, 2012. I have a sponsor. He knows he's my sponsor. He's taken me through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I have the honor and the privilege to take other alcoholics through the 12 steps as well. Alcohol and drugs was the answer to the emptiness in my soul that I found my entire life. I was restless, irritable, and discontent even before I took a drink or drug. I know everybody gets up here and they say that they felt different. Well, I didn't know that I felt different because I had nothing to compare my life to. You know what I mean? It's the only normal life that I know, right? Before I took a drink, I was a pathological liar. I told stories like my mother had passed away, like my little brothers had passed away, that I lived here or been there or knew that person. I just fiend for your attention, whether it was good or bad. As long as your focus was on me, you were in the right spot. You know what I mean? I felt useless. You know, I hated myself. I got annoyed very easily. I couldn't understand why I felt out of place or didn't fit in, you know. It wasn't the alcohol, you know. Alcohol wasn't the problem, it was the answer. I'm not a problem drinker, I'm an answer drinker. I robbed my first house before I even took a drink or drug, you know what I mean? I was like 12 years old. And it made me feel like I fit in. And that's all I ever wanted my whole life. I've been searching for something out here to make me feel whole. And when I took that first drink when I was 13 years old, I felt that. You know, I love the effects produced by alcohol and drugs. And I'm not talking about like the high or the buzz. I mean, that shit's great, don't get me wrong. But it made me feel whole. It made me feel part of. My whole life I've been doing nothing but separating myself from God's kids. And the moment I took that drink, I felt like we were one. You know, and why wouldn't I seek that out? Why wouldn't I want that? It's the only thing that had worked for me. And that's how I lived my life for a very long time. You know, I'm not going to talk too much about like how it was or what it was like because we all know how to get here. We all know how to drink and drug. I'm the kind of alcoholic who puts my hands on my mother, the person who loves me the most, because she's blocking me from the most important thing in my life. And at that time, it was alcohol, you know? I'm the kind of person that will be your best friend and turn around and rob you and then help you look for whatever I stole for you. You know what I mean? I'm the kind of person that will lie to you about the smallest thing. You ask me if there's any milk in the fridge, I'm going to tell you that there isn't, even though there is. You know, I don't know why I do things like that. I just do. You know what I mean? And when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, well, before that I had been a bartender at Buffalo Wild Wings for a few years. And, you know, I ran through those people's lives. I ran through everybody's life that I came in contact with. It was all about me and what I wanted and what I needed, right? The book says that we're selfish and self-centered to our very core, and we couldn't wish that away. And there would be times where I'd be lying in bed, awake to all hours of the night, thinking, why do I do these things to these people? You know, these people care about me. These people love me. And they did. But it wasn't enough, right? No matter the consequences, the outside consequences, right? The DUIs, the nights in jail, my mother screaming and crying to me, telling me, please don't drink, I love you so much, don't do it, is not going to keep me sober. I need depth and weight, right? Frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. None of that stuff kept me sober. It might have temporarily, right? For a period of time, fear kept us sober for a little bit until it stopped. I love what Chuck Chamberlain says, and I say this all the time. There's going to come a point in time where you are no longer able to put something in between you and you. And I didn't know what that meant. You know, that's all that shiny shit that I place power in. Any human power, any materialistic power. Until it stops working, then I'm left with self. And what does self do? Self makes really selfish decisions based on fear that typically hurt a lot of people, right? And they retaliate, and then I get mad, and then I don't talk to you forever. Or I do something bad back to you. I retaliate back, and it's just on and on and on and on and on. You know, like I said, I was working at Buffalo Wild Wings as a bartender, and at the time it seemed like this girl was dropped randomly into this bar. But it wasn't random. I can look back now and just You know, that was the grace of God. This girl, she was a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and before I knew that, I took interest in her. She was a really cool, nice girl, very welcoming, loving. I remember we went out to dinner one night to Texas Roadhouse, and I'm sitting down and I'm ordering drinks, and she's not drinking, and I'm asking her, you know, don't you want a drink? Like, I'll buy you one if you don't have money for it. And she's like, no, I don't drink. I didn't know what that meant, and I was like, what do you mean you don't drink? She said, I'm sober. And I had no idea what sober meant, what recovery meant, what Alcoholics Anonymous was. I had one experience with Alcoholics Anonymous when I was like 15. I got caught drinking at this party and got locked up. Well, not locked up, I didn't get thrown in jail, but I was in handcuffs in the middle of the lawn, and my mom grounded me, of course, and you know, the next day I'm searching through the yellow pages looking for an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting so she could take me and see that, you know, I'm doing better, maybe I don't have to be grounded for X amount of time, and that wasn't the case. I remember sitting down in a room, and it's just very vague. I really don't remember too much. I just remember sitting down in this room with a friend and my mother and her mother, just listening. And that was my only experience with Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't remember too much about it. But she said she was a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she hadn't had a drink in a year and some change. And that just kind of confused me, because I didn't understand why anybody would want to stop drinking, especially like people like me, right? Because it worked. Ease and comfort, right? Relief. And I started asking her questions about like what she did and, you know, what happened and why she went to treatment and halfway house. And the next day, I just continued to drink. You know what I mean? It didn't really resonate that much to where like, oh, I'm going to get sober now. But it planted the seed, right? I can look back and see how she was just a vessel for God, right? She was carrying this message. She knew she was the only person that knew what was really wrong with me. You know, my whole life I've been to therapists, psychiatrists. I've been prescribed everything from like Adderall to Xanax, bipolar, manic depressive, ADD, all of it, you know, and none of it ever took. I abused all that medication. I drank on top of it. I used other medication on top of that medication, and it just never worked. So I continued to drink, and I'm drinking, and I remember waking up one night. I remember sitting at the bars for like the last several months of my drinking, crying, because I did not want to pick up that drink. But I did it anyway. Had no idea why, no clue. But I still kept going and going and going and going. And I woke up one morning after a normal night of drinking, couldn't even get drunk towards the end, you know. Just forever hungover and sick and bloated and dry heaving and headaches. And I have this mirror that sits across from my bed, and I just look into that mirror, and you should just die, you know. Just feeling completely and utterly hopeless, useless, and scared. And I'm a mama's girl. My mom, great enabler, I feel like. You know, she's just always in my corner. She doesn't know, you know. She just wants what's going to be best for me. And I go to call her because I want that, Skyler, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I love you. I'll take care of you, this, that, and the third. And I didn't. I called that girl and I asked her for help, you know. Help me. I don't want to drink anymore. And she took me to my first meeting. And I remember how scared I was. You know, I live in Bel Air, Maryland. We have this thing called the Man House. It's like a little club. It's not a clubhouse. It's just a garage that sits across from this halfway house, and they have meetings in it 7 days a week, all hours of the day. And I remember walking up this driveway, and it's like, I don't know, a 20-foot long driveway, but at the time it felt like 10,000 miles, and my knees were weak, and I see this crowd of people. And I'm like, oh my God. I start sweating, crying a little bit, all these thoughts going through my head, right? My judgments, my opinions, and what I think I know. These people aren't going to like me. These people are not going to let me be here. These people are going to be really mean. They're going to be weird. They're going to be creepy. I don't know what's going on. But I get up to this crowd of people, and they're all just smoking cigarettes, and, you know, they're very welcoming, you know, how you doing, what's your name? All these women bum rushed me and was like, let me get your number, you know, we could go for coffee. And I'm like, no, thank you. And we go and we sit down in this meeting, and it was a nooner, and everybody knows how wonky nooners are. They're a little strange. Sometimes I like them. I like them when they're really sick, especially sometimes. I'm like, keep going. Make me feel better about myself. Like, I know I got all the answers. And I sat down. This old-timer, his name's Joe P., and he's talking about plugging into a power source and how we're powerless, and I have no idea what that means. And I'm like, okay. And this woman over here is talking about how she just relapsed off of a Cosmo and a Bellini. I'm like, she doesn't even sound like she has a problem. I don't know why she's here. And then all I can hear behind me is this guy cracking his knuckles, and I'm like, I have to get out of here. And we get out of the meeting. She goes like, yeah, so what'd you think? What'd you think? And I was like, I don't know. It's really not for me. But it's like God took over my body immediately. And I just like, I used to hate that saying, keep coming back. But that's what happened for me. And it was almost like against my very will. Like God just took over and I just kept coming back. Although I did not want to. I was terrified, right? All I know is how to separate myself from you guys. And I remember going to meetings and standing on outside the corners pretending I'm on my phone and like too scared to talk to you. You know, and sometimes it's because I think you might not like me. Sometimes, you know, I don't know what it is. I just really know how to fight loneliness with isolation my whole life. And I asked that woman to be my sponsor, and she sat down with me, and we started going through the steps, and it was like a foreign language, man. I really didn't understand it at all. I was very confused. All I know is like I didn't want to keep drinking, and once I stopped drinking, I thought life was going to get better, right? I thought, you know, I was going to gain people's trust back, people were going to love me, I was going to get a new job, maybe get some money, some material things, maybe a boyfriend, who knows? I just thought life was going to be good. And that's why I kept going back, because I want happiness, right? What society tells me happiness is, what my delusional brain thinks happiness is, money, power, prestige, right? I would have sold this whole thing so short. I came in here looking for happiness. Happiness is bullshit. It really is. It's a weird word to fill. God has given me a gift that runs much deeper than happiness, you know. He's given me sobriety, peace of mind, freedom from this, from the obsession. But it took a while to get there, and that was because of me. You know, self got in the way a lot, self balked a lot. But so we started going through the steps, and it didn't make sense. And yeah, I'm powerless. My life is unmanageable. Look at the DUI I got, you know. Look at all these jobs I got fired from. You know, it's easy to see the outside of manageability of this thing. It really is. And step 2, came to believe in a power grid. And I said, yeah. Step 3, okay, got it. Yeah, you know, I was raised, my mother, she's an old school Catholic Irish woman, right? And she never forced religion down my throat ever. We went to church when I wanted to, you know. We didn't really, I used to tell people that I gave things up for Lent and that, you know, I did the whole 9 and Ash Wednesday and like church every Sunday, but that's a lie. My mom didn't do that to me. She was very like understanding. If you want to go, you want to go. I remember sitting in this, what is it called? CCD. Religious school. I remember it was my first day, and there was a test, right? And the first question was something about Jesus. I remember watching all the kids breeze through their tests and turn them over, and they're so excited to have them grade, and they're happy, and they're smiling, and I am terrified because I don't know the answer to this question. And I start hysterically crying, and the woman, the teacher, she comes up to me, she starts rubbing my back, and she's like, everything's going to be all right. Like, you don't have to do this. Like, we'll talk. Everything's okay. But in my mind, right, my delusional, self-centered, self-seeking brain tells me that she's mad at me. I'm going to go to hell because I don't know the answer to this question. My whole family's going to go to hell now because of me, and I don't want to do this. When I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I told you that I didn't believe in God, right? Because, for one, it sounds a lot cooler than telling you that I'm too scared to believe in God. Because my whole life, I thought God was out here. I thought God and Jesus and prayer and meditation looked a certain way. I thought you were supposed to get down on your knees and fold your hands and look up to a sky, to this man, this beautiful man with, like, brown flowing hair and, like, you know, all the pictures we see. And I thought it looked that way. And I told you I didn't believe, but I was too scared. You know, how's God going to answer all my prayers when he's got a million, thousands and thousands of people to answer to? He's not going to answer mine. Look at all the shit that I just did to all his kids, you know? So I told you that I didn't believe. And funny thing about fear, man, nothing in this life has robbed me more than fear, because it literally paralyzes me. It paralyzes my thinking, and I don't even try. You know what I mean? Because I already know. I know the answer. My alcoholic ego's got the plan, man, and I'll do anything to make that plan come through. And it just blows up in my face every single time because of that one fear. That one lie I told you. I had to stick to my guns and to show you how much I didn't believe in God. I'm not going to get this thing. I'm different. You know, different in the sense that, you know, I wanted to be like an atheist or like a nihilist. I just wanted to look cool and edgy and just different from you, right? Separating myself once again. And I started just to like not take this thing seriously. I didn't really know what I was suffering from though. You know, I'm sure my first sponsor told me I had an allergy. I'm sure she told me once I put that first drink in me, I don't know when I'm going to stop, and that phenomenon of craving sets in. And I just roll with it. And I have this obsession where I plan my entire life around the drink and drug and myself and what I need and what I want, and the hell with the rest of you. You know, if you got involved, that's your fault. I didn't know, nor did I really want to know. So I started blaming her. We had a falling out. And God puts people in our lives for a purpose, man. They serve a purpose. And this man, who was my boyfriend for like 2 years, his name was Elliot, and it was like, I can look back now. We're not together anymore, but I can look back and see why God placed him in my life, right? I had a falling out with my sponsor. We weren't talking. I was hanging out with all her friends. I had no network of my own. I had no working knowledge of the 12 steps and what I suffer from, right? And what does self do? Self drinks, runs, kills myself, whatever. And this man was very fired up about AA and fired up about God and was armed with the facts about himself and his illness. And here he was, you know? And I didn't know how to love anyone. I didn't. And I put my hands on him, and I said horrible things. And he stuck around for a long time, he did. But I can see why today, why he was stuck around. Maybe it was to, you know, keep me sober for a period of time until I found a spiritual solution. Who knows? But I didn't drink, you know. I sure wanted to, man. God, I remember like going to the bars, right? And he'd be screaming behind me to the bartender, "Don't do it, she's sober, she's sober." And I'd be ordering vodka tonics, a drink that I had never drank before in my life. And I would squeeze a little lime in it and start stirring it around and just staring at it. And I remember the first spiritual experience I had in sobriety, an untreated alcoholic. I was sitting at this bar, and I was ordering this drink, and he's screaming behind me. And I have every intention to drink it. But I just blank out, and everything goes black, and all I remember is driving home. You know, that was not me. I had nothing to do with that, because self wanted to drink so bad that night. You know, the problem is me, sober. I can't stand it. With no solution, once you remove my solution, right, drugs and alcohol, that's how I deal with life. And I have no solution from the 12 steps or God. It's like I want to crawl out of my skin, right? The bedevilments. I love the bedevilments, man. We were having trouble with our personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear. We were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. That's me when I'm sober with no solution from the 12 steps of God. And I need relief. And funny things about alcoholics, I can find relief in anything. Not only the drink and drug, but sex, boys, money, friendship, you know. I will depend on you so hard, and I will suck you dry till you're done with me, and I will move on to the next. So I got a new sponsor because it was her fault that I felt this way. And I got this, his name was Brennan, and he did the steps, not out of the book, but in paperwork form, and I'm not knocking that. That's just my experience. And I was answering questions and definitions and, you know, writing how I'm powerless over 100 times a day, and I have no idea what that word even means. So I'm just writing and writing and writing, and I'm just, life is just so mundane and tedious, and I'm just walking. I'm like, if this is sobriety, I want nothing to do with it. God, I hated myself so much, and I hated you. In this period of time, I had 8 jobs in 2 years, you know. I put my hands on my boyfriend. I treated my mom horribly. I got a car, I stopped paying the insurance. You know what I mean? Like all these things I'm reaching for, and nothing seems to be working, and I can't understand why. Why is this not working for me? I had a really cool, another spiritual experience in untreated alcoholism. I got the opportunity to go to Florida, right? I lived in Florida for a period of time. And my grandfather, a man who I've not talked to in 5 years over resentment that has nothing to do with me, but here I am, I'm angry at him, and I don't talk to him in a long time, and he finds out I'm coming to Florida, and he goes, you know, like, if you're coming down here, you might as well stay with me, you don't have to pay for a hotel, I'll feed you, this, that, and the third. I said, great, you know, like, I don't have to pay for anything, I'm not even going to see him, I'll spend more time with my friends, like, I don't even have to talk to him. Great, perfect, works out in my advantage. I go down to Florida with a friend, and I wind up spending more time with that man than I did with any of my friends. We talked, we shared things, we got to know one another. I had no idea that I was making amends. I hadn't even got that far in the steps, you know what I mean? I didn't even know what amends really meant. 5 months later, that man died. It's like God was taking me to make an amends in untreated alcoholism, something that I would never do on my own self. From that moment on, like a light switch went on, right? I'm like, holy shit, I need God. Like, all of a sudden, everything is starting to click a little bit. Just a little bit, not much, because I'm still, you know, going crazy. The friend that I brought down there with me, I left him there. I left him in Florida. He had to get a plane ride home. I tried to reach out and make amends to him later on. He wanted nothing to do with me. Like, God will put him in my life when he's ready, right? We'll see. But something started to click, and I figured out that, all right, maybe I need a higher power. Maybe there's something to do with that here. And I got a woman. Her name's Kathy P. Some of you might know her. She's a beautiful woman. She had 13 years of sobriety. She was awesome. She helped a lot of women. She had this undeniable faith and just talked with such wisdom. You know, I fell in love with her. But the funny part about this is she was screwed from the moment that I asked her for help, because I didn't want her help. I wanted her to save me. I thought she was going to save me. I thought she was going to take my hand and we were going to walk down this path and we were going to find God together, and I was going to like do this thing and I was going to be happy, right? So attached to happiness still. And that's not what happened. I put her up on a pedestal with expectations far too great. She was screwed. You know, there was no way she was going to be able to help me. I actually gained a resentment towards her. I kept putting her off, and she told me to grow up one day, and it was like the worst thing in the world you could have ever said to me. I was like, grow up, really? She was like, yeah, you're so selfish and self-centered. I was like, yeah, no shit, aren't you? And like, I love that woman so much. She, again, God using her, man. God using her as a vessel. That resentment is the very thing that saved my life. That resentment is the very thing that led me to find a spiritual solution. Because I reached out to a man who had a similar resentment towards her, and I was like, you know, my plan was that we were gonna talk a lot of shit about her. He was gonna justify me, tell me how I was so right and she was so wrong. And he said if he gave that to me, there would be no lick of God in that. So what I do, I call his best friend, and I look for the same exact thing. And instead, his best friend came over, and we sat down on my balcony for 3.5 hours. And he took me through 1, 2, and 3 without me even knowing it. He told me that I was powerless, right? Powerless. Absolutely, I've lost the choice in drink and drugs. I cannot use them in any form safely whatsoever, okay? But I'm powerless in the sense that I do not have the power to keep myself sober. I don't possess that power. Lack of power is my dilemma, and like it made so much sense. You know, I don't have the power to do this. My life is unmanageable because I try to manage it, right? I love this analogy in here on page, 62, 60? Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show, is forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, the scenery, and the rest of the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. What usually happens, the show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious, as the case may be. Still, the play does not suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure other people are more to blame. He becomes angry, indignant, self-pitying. What is the basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if he only manages well? Is it not evident to the rest of the players that there are these things that he wants? And do not his actions make each and every one of them retaliate, snatching all they can to get out of the show? Is he not even in the best moments a producer of confusion rather than harmony, or actor self-centered and egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays? That's me. I read that with him and I was like, oh, yeah, absolutely, to a T, that's me. He was like, okay, so you don't have the power to keep yourself sober. You can't manage your life. What's next? He was like, we have to come to believe in a power greater than ourselves that can restore us to sanity. And all of a sudden, like, this fear went right up, right? God. It's been the fear, it's been the consistent fear of my entire sobriety, that I'm not good enough for God, that I don't deserve God's grace, that I don't deserve God's love. How is he going to answer my prayers? But he explained it in a way that was just like perfect for my brain at the time, because I was so beaten and broken down in sobriety, man. It's like I had been cracked open almost. I was dying in sobriety. I was waiting for something to rub off on me, something from you guys, right? The only thing that rubbed off on me was death. It's like rigor mortis set in slowly. And he explained it in a way that was just like, do you believe that I believe? And this man, he was like all over the place. He was like one of Farnsworth's guys, and he was like helping people and like practicing spiritual principles and like just love and tolerance and doing speaking commitments and had sponsees. And he looked like he genuinely cared, He sat down with me. Of course he believes, I felt like it was the only person to ever sit down with me, but I forget, man, that all these people tried to help me along the way. And, in some ways that they did. They served purpose in my life. I just didn't hear it. I didn't want to hear it, Skyler's options looked a lot easier than AA, right? AA is very uncomfortable. I'm so selfish and self-centered. I'll do anything to stay in my comfort zone, no matter how insane it looks. I'm comfortable there. But I was like, yeah, you believe. I believe you believe. He was like, all right, well, step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood him. And he broke down the word decision for me, and he was like, decision comes from this Latin word scissore, and scissore in English means to scissor. So when we make a decision, we're cutting out all other options, and we're going with this specific option. But in order to make that happen, we got to put some action behind it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, but what about God's will? Like, I don't know what God's will is. And he's like, no. Here's the thing about God's will and God's plan, right? God's plan. I don't know God's plan. But I'm pretty sure God's will is love, compassion, patience, tolerance, love thy neighbor. And what's my will? My will essentially is my judgments, my opinions, and what I think I know. Turn your will over to God's will. And I was like, oh, shit. I guess. He was like, really, all you're doing is making a decision to go on with the rest of the steps. How about we do that? I was like, all right. Like I said, I exhausted all other options, and this was like the very last thing that I went to. I mean, I feel like it is for all of us, really. And we said the 3rd step prayer together, and we got down on our knees, and we held hands. And, from that very moment, it's like when I turned my will and my life over to the care of God, that I didn't understand. It's like, my life was no longer my business. that God can do with me whatever he wants and however that looks. And I went on with the rest of the steps, man. Step 4 was the first honest step 4 that I ever done. Before I remember writing down my inventories, and I was putting stuff on there that was a total lie. That didn't happen. I remember I told my first sponsor that I was molested or something, because I want to out bottom you here in AA. I want to be the best alcoholic I want to be better than you. I told a lot of lies, man. I told people that I did heroin. I told people that I did this and that, and it's not true, and it was very honest. I prayed before, and I just remember it was like, God, just use me. Just help me see the truth. Help me be honest for once in my life. And he did. I wrote an honest 4-step, and if I learned anything from that 5th step that I did with that man, it was all these horrible things that these people did to me, right? That's all I saw. That what you did to me, that's as far as we got, right? That you wronged me. I would never, ever, ever do that. It was all of a sudden I had become Mother Teresa or something. And I'm the most kind, loving, giving person I know. But, I like it says in the book, we place ourselves in the position to be hurt. And then I'm burnt up and I'm sore and I hold a grudge. I learned that I could walk shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye with you. That you were no better or less than. That I was no better or less than. That we could do this thing together, Unity. Something I had never, ever, ever been a part of, right? Once again, separating myself from you guys. 6 and 7. I feel like we as alcoholics can overcomplicate this whole thing, right? It's got to be something bigger than what it really is. And when he was like, all right, read this paragraph and go sit with God for an hour, I'm like, that's it? That's all I got to do? He was like, yeah, just reflect on what we talked about, say the 7-step prayer, and listen, And I'll be honest with you guys, I only sat down for 15, 20 minutes. That's all I had. That's all I had in me, man. I had to get out there. My whole life I had to be surrounded by people. Even when I was fighting loneliness with isolation most days, I just needed that background noise. I needed people around me. Even to this past week, I'm lying, this past month, I just felt like I cannot be alone, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm really far away from prayer and meditation. I don't know. Maybe I'm disconnected. But I feel like, it's okay to be disconnected sometimes, because that's the only way we're going to get reconnected. So it's I need the bad for the good. I need the dark for the light. If God is either everything or nothing, then isn't it really all God? Even what we think is bad or harmful, But, sat down with God, I did the meditation, and we got back together. I put pen to paper free, and we went out and we made these amends, man. I made some amends. And a lot of people wanted nothing to do with me. A lot of people didn't answer me back. Some people did. And I got to sit down with these people and carry the AA message into the amends. And not just say, I'm sorry, Sorry lost its meaning a long time ago. Sorry doesn't really mean anything anymore. Think about how many times I said sorry my entire life. I got to tell them, this is what I did to you. I'm aware this is what I did. Something that my delusional brain always shoved under. This is what I did, and this is how I want to help, and what can I do for you? And is there anything that I left out? That question right there is so important. I remember asking my mom, right? I work at this bar called McGurk's right down the street from my house for me, and these people, I feel like all normal people know how to practice principles and have morals and have values. It's crazy to me. But these people gave me $750 to go see my mom, my sick mom, for the holidays. And I got to make amends to her there. And I went through the whole spiel, and I was like, is there anything that I left out? And she's like, Skyler, I'm not trying to rub anything in your face, but there are plenty of times where I just stayed up crying. Plenty of times where I called out of work because I was so tired from crying all night long. So many nights where I just walked the streets looking for you, making phone calls, calling the police. That's stuff that we don't see, That's stuff that even in a spiritual solution, and I can see how I've harmed you, I don't know what kind of pain they really go through when I'm not around, Selfish and self-centered. I can't think that way. I don't know why. I have to have God's help. That's the only way that I'm going to be rid of that. But I got to free these people of me, you know, and I right the wrongs in my past. I don't feel like I have to constantly look over my shoulder anymore. You know what's a good time to make an amends? When you feel like you can't, like, be around a person, you avoid a person, or you avoid a place. That's a pretty good time to make an amends when you feel that way. You know, and there's, like, still a place where, a couple places and a couple people, I'll be honest with you. Like, there is a woman that I know I need to have an honest conversation with. Maybe not an amends, but an honest conversation, because I don't like the person I am when I'm around her. It has nothing to do with her and everything to do with me. You know, I get tight, and I don't talk to her, and I ignore her, and we share the same group of friends, and I'll talk to everyone but her, and I'll go out of my way to kind of like exclude her. And I remember sitting down in meditation one day, asking God what I should do about this. And it just came to me, how would you feel? The one place where you're supposed to feel completely comfortable in, you feel uncomfortable. I'd probably be a little angry, a little sad, a little confused. Still haven't made that amends or that honest conversation. Pride, man, pride gets in the way every single time. You know, my good friend Nancy, who I came up with here today, I talked to her. We just talk to each other all the time. And she asked me one day, I was talking to her about this honest conversation I'm supposed to have. And she goes, do you want to be right or do you want to be free? I want to be free. But pride is still standing in the way, you know. I keep asking God for the willingness, but it's like, I want the willingness, but not really, you know what I mean? And I know what the freedom feels like on the other side of that. There's this girl who I did not talk to for over a year, right? My pride and my ego kept me from talking to her. And I talked a lot of shit, you know. I was horrible to her. I really was. Not to her face, because, like, I'm sneaky, right? Like, alcoholics are just sneaky. We go around backs and we say things. But she relapsed one night, and she came back from like a 2 or 3 day run, and she was sitting in a late night meeting. She starts to cry, and I don't know what came over me. God, it's the only thing I can account for. God came over me, and I got up and I took her hand and we talked. And I took her outside and we talked. We talked about the spiritual solution that I have found through the 12 steps. We talked about the God that I have found through the 12 steps. We have talked about the spiritual principles I try to practice. And 3 days later, she asked me to sponsor her. You know what happened? I fell in love with her. I fell in love with that girl. Like that, you know? When we were sitting there talking, it was like I only heard her and she only heard me. The connection that was there was undeniable. And she's going through a really rough time right now. She can't stay sober, but, like, you know, when I'm really, you know, sharing this message, carrying this message, I can be around people who are still using. She gave me her dope and her rigs, and I threw it away for her. I can, like the Big Book tells us, you know, after step 10, we have been placed in a position of neutrality where I am safe and I am protected. And I feel like I can be around anybody and anything, you know, contingent upon the maintenance of my spirituality. You know, I have to do this thing. So I freed all those people of me, and I went on to 10, 11, and 12. And I just try to live in those, man. People say that these are the maintenance steps of this program. Like, there's nothing to maintain here. It's for growth. It's for understanding. It's for effectiveness. Because I'm a fallible human being. I fail so hard on a daily basis. This past month, I'm telling you, has been really rough, and sometimes I really don't understand why I feel this way. But I have to look at and see what am I not doing here? What's really going on? Let me take this inventory. Let me figure out, you know. There was a point in time where, like, I was listening to too many Chris Raymer speaker tapes, and I got on this kick where, like, you know, the 86%, and, like, you're really a non-alcoholic, and then, you know, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm the only one doing this thing right, and I have the big book, and I have the solution, and let me take you through the steps. And I almost started treating it like a competition. You know what I mean? I need the most sponsees. Like, look at me, look at what we're doing. We're going on road trips. We're doing this, we're doing that. And I was dying, once again, in sobriety. It's like something happened at the end of those. As the result of the 12 steps, my spirit had been awakened. But But it's like, when we get drunk or we get high, do you stay high the first time you get high? Do you stay drunk the first time you get drunk? No. You keep getting drunk and you keep getting high. I'm not going to stay spiritually awakened after I have a spiritual awakening. Me and Nancy were listening to this, Clancy A History, talking about how Bill had this vital spiritual experience, right? It was like a burning bush moment for Bill, and 6 months later he was ready to drink, and he got on the payphone and he started calling people until he got in touch with Dr. Bob's wife or something like that. I was like, oh my God, that happens. You know what I mean? I need to constantly keep trying. You know what I mean? That's all I can do. So I went through the 12 steps, and my sponsor was like, all right, time to go out and sponsor people. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember this woman, I met her at a late night. As the result of my ex-boyfriend, he called me. I wasn't even at this late night. He called me and was like, there's a woman here who really needs your help. And I drive up there, and it's a 40-year-old woman from Boston. Nothing in common, right? At the time, I was 24. Nothing in common with this woman. Had no idea who she was. She had no idea who I was. We went to a meeting together. She asked me to sponsor her, and I was scared shitless. What if I don't do this right? What if I kill her? What if I say something wrong? But I didn't, If I learned anything, is I really don't exist in the spiritual world. I'm just a channel, right? I'm just here to show you what was shown to me. And it was shown to me. People didn't tell me. People didn't give a good talk. My sponsor took my hand and walked me down this path and helped me find a spiritual solution through the 12 steps. He showed me. And all I do is show these girls. That's all I can do. I don't exist in the spiritual world. I have nothing to do with this. At a point in time, I thought I did, and I feel like we go through these stages, right? We go through, life just happens. And I can get really hung up on, this is not where I'm supposed to be at. I'm not where I want to be at. And I'm telling you right here, I will never be where I want to be. This is God's process. This isn't mine. And sometimes I just got to sit through it, walk through it. Spiritual growth doesn't always look amazing. It doesn't always look perfect. Sometimes it's really uncomfortable and really painful when you lose people and you get scared. But if I can walk through that with God and trust God, I will come out on the other end with an experience to relate to another alcoholic with. And that's all that matters, God will take me through these experiences that absolutely have nothing to do with me. I remember talking to a friend one night. Well, before that night, my boyfriend called me, and he was like, he broke up with me, and I was really sad, and I called out of work, and I told him I got into a car accident, but I didn't get into a car accident. And my friend, who can't stop drinking, texts me and says, I love you and I miss you. And if everything was going the way Skyler thought it was supposed to go, I would have texted back, I love you too, miss you too, and would have went on with my day. But instead, I asked her to come over. I told her that I needed help, that I was scared. She came over, and she sat down with me. She told me where my delusion began, and she told me how I was fearful. And she said to me, what's crazy? And I said, what's that? She was like, I prayed for the first time in months today for God to put somebody in my life that I could help, and you needed me. Maybe that phone call was supposed to happen. Maybe that phone call had absolutely nothing to do with me. Maybe that phone call had everything to do with Mackenzie and showing her that even in her most selfish moments, that God still uses her. Maybe it was just to give her a little bit of hope. That's why I don't exist in the spiritual world. That's why God is either everything or nothing. Like I said, I would have sold this whole thing so short because I was looking for happiness. God has lifted the obsession. God has given me freedom from self. God has given me joy. And God has given me a relationship with you guys. Alcoholism, left in God's hands, is the greatest gift I've ever received. It's not enough for me to say I'm grateful. It's not enough to write a gratitude list, Gratitude is a debt I pay to the people who came before me, to all the sponsors that I've had, to all the people that I've come in contact with, you know, to the people that don't even know about AA yet, to my ex-boyfriend who I can't stand today, you know. And we do things, we get together, we just did this young people's convention in at the Stones last Friday. And 5 hours before we did that, I was putting my hands on him. I'm a fallible human being, you know. I get really scared, I get really feared up, and I don't know what to do sometimes. It might sound really bad, but I have to be honest with you guys. If I'm not being honest with you, I'd be doing you a disservice. I would be doing myself a disservice. I have to tell you where I'm at, you know. At the end of that convention, you know, I did apologize. I told him that I was sorry. I asked him what can I do to make this right. He said, just be my friend, Skyler. Just be my friend. That's all I ask. I'm grateful for alcohol. If it wasn't for alcohol, I probably would have been a teenage suicide kid, you know. Untreated alcoholism has definitely shown me that. Alcohol brought me here to AA. AA brought me to God. God brought me to you guys. And I have to keep sharing this message. It's my purpose in life, right? I used to feel useless. And I know I have a purpose today. I know it's just simply to take your hand, walk with you, and show you what has been given to me. You know that saying, you got to give it away to keep it? There's nothing to keep here. I got to give it away to get it. Anyway, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me share.
I'd like to thank Skyler one more time for coming all the way up from Maryland. There's absolutely no smoking on the church property. That's the one thing they require from us. Next week we have a really extreme, hardcore woman coming in, Gina T, coming in to lay down some decent stuff. So don't miss that. We got a nice way of closing. I'm probably forgetting something, but anyway, let's wrap this up and hit Perkins.